everybody. I am Will.
And I'm Kristen.
And this is So I'm Watching The Great, Season 2, Episode 9, Walnut Season.
Woof.
It
had been cracked at the end.
It had been cracked, and Elizabeth was very proud. I didn't even really think...
Sure, everybody was proud.
I didn't take that into consideration. I said to you when we were watching, I was like, but there's so many times in this show where they'll say something like very vulgar or sexually aggressive to or about Catherine. And I'm like, that is Elle Fanning.
Yeah,
I'm like,
come on.
I kind of love it, though. I kind of love, like, I think that's part of it.
I think that is definitely part of it.
I think if she were too into it, the balance would be off.
Yeah.
But she can handle it.
Yeah. She's also 100% the youngest person on the cast. She's only 23.
But I mean, like, Catherine's not like, my virgin sensibilities.
Yeah.
Like, she can handle it.
Yeah.
But I do like that she is a straight man in this comedy of fools. But so Paul was born, and actually to piggyback off of that initial talking point, I did like her childbirth pangs. They were very guttural, very
she was it said roaring in the captions.
So she had the baby, and then we jumped 6 weeks.
And also Dr. Vinadell was not letting go of using the forceps, which were terrifying.
I like that he's like kind of skeevy.
Yeah.
But it's not like a full-blown perv.
No,
but
I think it comes from an honest and mostly nice place.
Well, they really were just winging it back then.
Oh,
so it's like every third or fourth thing he says, you're like,
huh.
Because he was even one of the candidates for Muriel's wedding.
Yeah. It is spelled differently, but it is a good joke.
Well, then I guess I'll start there. This show is very good with the plotting, because they've been laying groundwork for plot points throughout this entire season that you don't realize until the plot presents itself. Like they've talked about how Muriel's father's going to die and that she needs a husband. Yeah. Because the inheritance will go elsewhere. And even in the episode before this, they made a comment about a brother and sister marrying, but everyone just pretends they're cousins. Yeah. And so they've been like laying like steps to plots that we're getting.
Honestly, I'm into it. They're also, I mean, in the midst of revamping all of the laws for women that exist in Russia. So it's like what Muriel has done as a stopgap is actually quite brilliant. I'm impressed. I love her. She and we also got Charity Wakefield back as George. The two of them are so captivating to me as performers and women that I don't know what to do with myself when they're on screen. I love them.
I like George and I like Charity, but you seem particularly...
I'm so taken with her. It's something about her face, and maybe it's the same thing as like what Rachel keeps saying, where it's like, because this is like old timey and George is actually not 100% committed to the like aristocracy bit. She doesn't wear all the crazy makeup. And so I can just see her face and I'm obsessed with it. I love it.
So we did get her back. I had believed her at first.
Me too. I'm disappointed that she's being false.
Duplicitous.
Yeah.
Part of me was like, because I have a hard time calling her a villain, but from Catherine's perspective, she is against Catherine. And there was a part of me that I was like, interesting. Is she going to end up being one of these, like, I don't know why, but I went to like Valencia on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
Yeah, that's what I was really hoping for. Is this something? I mean,
it's not off the table.
It's not off the table, and there is a possibility for like a triple cross where she is trying to keep Tatiana in her good graces too. But that feels Machiavellian in a way that I'm not sure is happening.
I'm so annoyed with myself that I have done a 180 with Tatiana. I think she is
fully
so
entertaining.
Funny.
Yeah, fully entertaining.
I didn't think she was.
Yeah.
I thought she was a waste. And we said when we were watching it, I was like, maybe it was just Svenska that I didn't like. But frankly, Svenska wasn't an omnipresence. So
she was not an omnipresence, and she wasn't hateful until the episode where she was.
Or like the one before, yeah.
Yeah, and that's when she got horrible and did the unforgivable by killing Shaky.
And maybe it's just as simple, because I mean, this happens frequently on shows where plots, characters, writers, actors, etc. find their footing.
Yeah.
So maybe it was just like it took them a minute for Tatiana to be the dunce.
I sort of feel like, if I'm being honest, the thing that made me turn in favor of her is how bad she wants to fuck Peter. It is funny every time.
Because we didn't even touch on it, but it was with the ice box where they were so marveled by the refrigerator and his tongue was cold, and so she was just sucking his tongue.
So good.
And then the hubris with which she wanted to freeze her tits.
Well, because that was also very funny on its own. But then Elizabeth came in and said, "I'm making my tits cold," and she touched her, and she goes, "Ooh, how delightfully weird," or like whatever she said. And she was like, "We should have tea," while she was like still touching her breast. And I was just like, I feel like Elizabeth wants to fuck the dead. She's so bonkers. I love her so much. She is astounding. Her too. What is her acting name? I have forgotten what it is, but she is also, I am like enamored of her as well. Belinda Bromelow.
She's my MVP of the show. But
I mean, because to be able to go from someone who's so bonkers and off the wall to having such a deeply intense and felt and realistic grief in this episode is outstanding.
Well, she's reliable in a way that feels false. That feels like it wouldn't be true. But before we moved on to Elizabeth, I did want to say that the scene with George, where she was talking to the other women and swaying them, and Tatiana's just utter, like, I can't think of a word I want to use, but she was just like,
the whole time she was like, what? So here is my only evidence for it potentially being a triple cross, which is, what if the other women get into it anyway? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Then George has still done a positive.
Like I said, I think that there's places to go. I'm not looking to get rid of George or Gregor, but I do think that they were in a position, I think I said this in the beginning, where it was sort of like, are we just going to keep doing this one thing? Yeah. Or is there a place to take them? Because I didn't even take into account how tricky it was going to be having Peter's best friend and Catherine's best friend in the throes of...
Well, I loved the way that George handled that, where she was like, I'm not in a position to be jealous or like ask you to stop seeing her. And Gregor was like, no, you're not. And she accepted it, but she
think that was strategy on
her part.
Yeah.
I mean, potentially
an element. I mean, but
because at this point in time, after this episode ends, I don't see Peter going back to George either. Mm-hmm. So it's like now George is sort of adrift in a way that I find fascinating. And I just think Charity Wakefield is up for the challenge.
Sure, absolutely. Plot wise, oh God, it was so good.
Yeah.
I made a note because it was like we get this like morsel from Peter that he can't lie, like he can't not say the truth. And I wrote down, I was like, this is such a good story development because it's new, but it feels right. Like it feels like that's been there since the beginning, because he is the type of person that just vomits whatever he's thinking at people. And so they're having this conversation about him not only fucking Catherine's mother, but then indirectly killing her or participating in her death.
I mean, through really I mean, he was fucking her, which was bad, but it was like not totally through his fault. And the window open.
Put up a fight.
Yeah.
Like I don't think we really touched on that, but for him, he passed that test.
He tried so hard not to fuck her. And it's like, he
certainly didn't.
Yeah. He didn't like really try to keep her from falling, but I do feel like in that moment you sort of free, like, what do you do kind of a thing. You're like, oh God, but yeah.
So you think that that's what we're talking about, and he just lets slip that he saw his mother kill Elizabeth's son,
Igor,
to the point where it took you guys like 2 seconds.
I was like, oh God.
It was like, what he just said was like,
and she registers it immediately, but then it takes him even like a further 15 seconds to realize what he said. And after that, like, he feels badly about it too. And then after that, she sort of just absconds with baby Paul.
So they said, which again, the mastery of her character, it was totally believable that she could snap and hurt this baby.
Yeah.
And that's wild that someone who you could also trust with your life, you could also believe could completely unravel at...
Especially having received such information. I mean, I think what was so fascinating is that Peter was the one who was like, well, she has the baby. Maybe she's trying to do a coup because I told her this like horrible information. And then Catherine was like, but she loves us both so much. And so and at that point you're like, well, she's not going to hurt the baby. She loves them both. But he also is the bearer of bad news. And she has Elizabeth's nephew a prisoner, essentially. I mean, barely. He gets out so often. But it's the type of thing where you're right. It's like on the turn of a dime. It's like every different time you think about it, the different outcome happens. Like it's good or it's bad. And it ends up being fine. She just goes to the country house. Well,
and that's another thing that I do like is that with all of this, and Catherine had faith in her, but with all of this, the second Catherine started talking to her, she was there. Like she wasn't lost in this daydream.
Yeah. Which thank God, because I don't need like multiple episodes of Elizabeth lost in a daydream that Paul is baby Igor.
And she very much was like, oh, of course not. I just had to play this out. Yeah. Like, and there was the conclusion that he should have never told her, and she agreed with that. And I just don't know that I agree with that because
I mean, I think it depends. I think in the age of zero therapy, it might be better to not know. But in my opinion, I'm kind of with her where she's like, well, at least now I know it wasn't my negligence.
Wasn't her.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is because I'm like, how much of her life did she lose to this falsehood about herself?
I mean, probably 20 years.
Yeah, like she could have maybe been a different person, most likely, if she knew it was not her fault.
Because I do think some of her daffiness is a coping mechanism against the grief, where if she can lean into the daffiness, then it's like, well, it's to be expected that she let her child drown because she's not all there, kind of. And so it's like a defense for her.
And because I had forgotten, considering how much I love this show, and I remember flashes of season 1.
Yeah.
But I don't remember all of it. I remember that she killed the other kid, which he was her son as well.
I don't remember.
He was Peter's. Remember the kid was in the hidden room, and she slit his throat because he was a little tyrant.
Oh yeah, well he was like Peter's brother or something.
Was he Peter's brother?
It was something like that, and he like had to be.
Yeah,
he like
and
had
she
to
did
be
it
for succession.
Yeah, so it's like we know what she's capable of, but the fact, I think she is my favorite character on the show.
I also loved, even despite coming to the potentially incorrect conclusion, I loved the emotional moment with her and Peter, where he was like, I'm really sorry. And she was like, kind of like, it's nothing. And he was like, no, I'm really sorry.
I mean, the amount of growth Peter's exhibited, which is why it's frustrating that it's like, if and when this stuff about Catherine's mother comes out, it's like, ugh.
I suspect it will be in the final episode of the season.
Yes. However, I mean, this could be one of those revelations that ends up working out. Like it could be the kind of thing that Catherine might, because they're back together. What?
I need a gif of him coming at her after she says the whole thing. Like, what would you do if like, I've always been into Nick Holt, but boy howdy, him just like coming at her like that. It's like it's up there with like the like hand flex in Pride and Prejudice, and also like the Nick and Jess first kiss in
Ross and
New
Rachel.
Girl. I mean, the way that it just is like, whew.
We touched on it in the very beginning when I was talking about how this is a show that, and this season actually, there was a lot of violence inflicted upon Catherine. Yeah. And you said one of the reasons why you think it works better or it's more tolerable is because of the power dynamics that they are largely equals, and
there is still a physical imbalance, but she can have him killed at any moment.
And like, I mean, just their actual chemistry.
Yeah. Which is electric.
Well, I was not going to go that far. I was not going to say that I think that they're this like fire burning passion, yada yada. But I think
I think in this episode is where it like, because even it was simmering in the carriage when they were going to find Elizabeth at the country house, because they're being very, friendly and jokey with each other.
So I guess is what I mean is that they're not star-crossed lovers.
No.
Like it's not like I mean, like you saw each other from a room and a passion that,
but it's like
nations.
Very nice.
But it's very much like people in this position, like two beautiful, powerful people thrust together by history that find a way to make it. It's very Beauty and the Beast.
Well,
it's
also, now at this point in time, it is so different than it was in the beginning of season 1, because she has actually come to know him.
Mm-hmm.
And she even has a line in this episode where she's like, I think you are the only person who truly knows me in the world.
There's like a and it's like, it's a more cerebral chemistry than it is physical or romantic.
And it got extremely physical.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I liked it.
That's a facet of it, but that's what I mean is it's like, it's not for me. It's not a Mr. and Mrs. Smith thing.
No.
It's very much. It's more calculated than that,
100%.
And I find that very, very interesting. I remember King Hugo from Sweden, and I remember something about a desk, but I don't remember anything else than that. So I guess they fell. They're like empire or whatever, and so they've just sort of come to.
Seeking refuge, essentially, They Sweden embraced democracy, and so they have no need for a royal family anymore. Although Denmark still has one in the year 2021.
So does Sweden.
So I suspect they're figureheads. It's like England, I
mean, it's a little less, but...
Well, sure. The Danish ones, though, are like goals. She's shockingly age appropriate, and they have like 3 or 4 kids. It's very cute.
I just recently saw a picture of Princess Grace's like granddaughter.
She beautiful?
Yes.
Yeah, fuck.
So anyways, King Hugo is out and about with his blonde hair and his white face.
Yeah.
Ugh. What?
White face.
He's pink.
He and Agnes both are fun. I'm excited. And then they're
doing something. We don't know what, but they're up to something.
Well, they're now a little irritated that Catherine and Peter seem to be back together. That was the last thing that we saw, was them being like, well, now what do we do?
I don't hate it. I'm not trying to get rid of it, but it is sort of the odd man out plot wise. Archie is still struggling.
Oh yeah, he wants to fuck that one guy.
I mean, that one guy's hot, but
yeah, the one guy's super hot.
It was very. He came up behind him and was just like, I want to fuck you.
Yeah, it was so funny. Because he grabbed him first and the guy was like, what's up, Archie? Like,
what's happening here?
Are you cool? And then I think the only other thing is that the war is not going amazing. Velmentov is like sort of floundering.
I really like his relationship with Catherine.
Me too.
He's not gross with her the way that...
Yeah. I like it too.
And how, because the final plot reveal was that she found out about Orlo, which I think she has every right to.
She can absolutely be angry. He just is like, because he was talking to Katya and he was like, I helped her win this. And it's like, that doesn't give you a right to steal millions of rubles. You out of your mind? But I also was on Katya's side where she was like, she'll calm down.
Yeah,
just like,
of course.
But he's like packing up to leave. And I was like, so you can go to the front lines? What are you going to do, Orlo?
He's a drama queen. So
that's why I'm shocked he wasn't actually gay.
Yeah.
I was
about to be like, he literally had like a mediocre tiff and was like, I got to go fuck a guy. Maybe I'm gay. It's like, I mean.
Maybe you didn't like that girl. Who knows?
Muzzle, but.
Yeah, come on.
No, he's a little bit of a drama queen. But no, just the way that Velmentov was talking to her.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm really.
They are like, they meet as intellectual equals.
Yeah.
They're just smart about different things. So she doesn't really know anything about war, but.
In a lesser show, he would undermine her or he would not actually respect.
But I think he actually likes her. It was just a couple episodes ago when he was like, I really believed that you could do more than most, which is not a lot, but you're better than I thought, and it is destructive.
Well, she's an interesting figurehead or an interesting main character in a show like this, because I was talking with your husband Will about it, and I was like, how are you liking the show? I was like, because you don't like these, like, he's not into palace intrigue, backstabby, bitchy, gossipy, subterfuge, the fashion and all that's not really his like go-to. And he was like, oh no, I love this. And I think the balance of characters, in particular, the performance of Nicholas Hoult, and then the character of Catherine, the fact that she is a true north or a like reliable lead. Well, you don't often get that in these types of shows.
It's also funny, and the horrible characters are played for comedy as opposed to being actual players in the scenario, which is the stuff that he hates. Where it's like, if Tatiana was like influencing politics, I think he'd be angrier.
Or like something like Gossip Girl. It's like, yeah, sure, you know, Serena ended up being a very standard good guy. Yeah. But it's like she wasn't noble in the way that like Catherine is. Sure. So it's very interesting. It's a very interesting,
I agree,
tone to set for a show like this. Is there any? I think that's it for.
I think that's it. Yeah.
For Walnut season, we've got one more left. I am excited and not scared. I'm sad. I just don't have faith that the show is
gonna get
popular
picked up
enough
again
to keep going.
It is Hulu, not Netflix.
Sure, but I don't know what's not clicking. What's not clicking? I don't know what's not clicking with people.
This show's fucking incredible.
Nobody's talking about it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. But I love what we have.
Yeah.
And it would be. This is also kind of show that doesn't necessarily need to go for 9 seasons. So I mean, if they wanted
like a solid 4 would be like, or even just.
Well, we have one more episode, so let's.
All right. Bye.
Go watch Marielle's wedding.